Hello YouTube Vintage Stereo Restorers. I just thought of something that might be kind of helpful. Um, I'll put it to you this way. When you're restoring things, okay, and you're planning on replacing transistors, doing a recap, any power resistors, you're going right through the thing. What you really want is, when it's all done, to turn it on, put some music through it, and go, wow. Sometimes you get disappointments. Sometimes you get fooled. The last one of these I did was a TW61. This is a KA2500. They're basically the same amp. The TW61 was 1 year older, Japanese market, 100 volt, 110 volt. But little things, I was actually topside on this one, checking the output transistors, as I always do that. Check them with a meter, make sure there's some grease on them, there's proper insulator, tighten down that whole thing. And then I noticed, well, the whole heat sink was kind of loose. There's 4 screws topside, 5th down here. And here's something I've learned to do on amps as I've evolved, and I forgot to do it on the TW61. The jacks on these, so this is late 60s. These are actually really good jacks. They're very similar to the Sansui ones. There's some kind of chrome metal, and they stand up. They grab most RCA plugs very tightly, even after years. Like that, just, you can tell it's grabbing the center post and the ground portion. But sometimes they grab tightly and you turn it on for your first listen and the left channel is barely working. Or you want to, you're running a phone through it and, oh, what's that buzz? And what it comes down to is a thin layer of oxide on these jacks. And I just use, like, this is 400 paper. I just give them a little polish from the bottom and a little polish from, flip it over and do it from the top, then blow everything out. But then you get interesting things. I've had, like this strip, some of the jacks in here are grounded through the screws, and I've already tightened this one, but you don't want to crank these down too high because the plastic on the other side will go. Just make sure they're firmly down. I'm going to replace these here with banana jacks, but I end up doing, what you can end up doing is I basically tighten every screw on the back. The chassis is basically 4 parts plus the faceplate. There's the main stamp, which is the floor, the base. Then there's another piece that bolts onto here. Down there, that's a separate piece, but screwed on there and here. This one. And interestingly enough, even though I don't think it's ever been touched, most of them are a bit loose, and that affects grounding. There's actually some soldered down grounds on here, and that affects the whole unit if that part of the chassis isn't bolted down. And then, of course, these are later ones you'll see. Basically, it's a one-piece stamping, whereas these earlier ones, this back plate is separate. And there's 2 screws here, 2 screws here, and 1 here. They're often the first thing to become loose from the in and out of the jacks. Now sometimes the stereo gets put in and it sits for 40 years and on the same shelf, the same thing's plugged into it. Well, you're lucky then. But most of them get moved around to different houses, things disconnected, reconnected. I actually end up tightening every screw I see, just to make sure. It's kind of like a preventative. But then sometimes you do forget. It's amazing. I had a KR2600 receiver a little while ago, and it had recapped it because there was a hum, and the same hum is there, and that's impossible. Well, okay, it's grounding. And there were 4 screws on the main board, and it actually grounds through those screws. And so I just went doot, 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 turn it on, hum gone. That's really, sometimes you get that lucky. Anyway, thanks for watching and listening.